Hello and welcome everyone to today's workshop on modern application development with Oracle REST Data Services. My name is Tara Van Cleve and I'm a marketing event manager for the developer initiative here at Oracle. We're excited to show you how to build powerful and secure REST APIs for your Oracle Autonomous Database. If you do not currently have an Oracle Cloud account, we've got a special promotion that I'll drop in the chat in a moment so that you can try out the services and follow along with the lab steps today. We'll also be recording this session, so if you'd like to complete the lab later on, we'll be sending the link to the recording via email shortly after the workshop concludes. If you have any questions during the workshop, please ask them in the Slack channel and we'll answer them throughout the session. The link to join is bit.ly/slack-join-devrel. Once you're in, you'll land in the general channel, and from there you can search for #HOL for hands-on lab, /ORDS-0914 to reach our dedicated space for Q&A today. Today's workshop will be presented by Chris Hoina, Senior Product Manager in Oracle's REST Data Services, and Jeff Smith, Distinguished Product Manager for Oracle SQL Developer and REST Data Services. So without further ado, I will hand it off to Chris.
Thanks, Tara. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Hoina. Just saw me in the slide deck there. I'm just chuckling at the picture that I had, the Tom Selleck mustache. So for those people that remember Magnum PI. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen here and we'll get started. We'll do some welcome and intros, and then I just want to touch a little bit about ORDS, and then we'll just do one slide of the lab, but I don't want to spend too much time on the slides because we have an hour, and I'm all for doing more practical things. So this goes without saying, but this is Jeff. I'm not sure if you want to say anything. Jeff's my manager. He's also my mentor. He's pretty cool dude.
I'm just a product manager.
Yeah.
I don't know what Chris is talking about.
Distinguished.
So we're on the database. That just means I'm old. We're on the database team here at Oracle. Thanks for everyone joining us today. The session is being recorded. I am on the Slack channel. If you have questions, feel free to pop on over there. And that channel will remain open even after the session's over. So if you want to sit back and watch Chris do the lab and then come back and do it yourself later, that channel will still be there. And yes, we're using the Autonomous Database in the Oracle Cloud to run through the lab. And it's very nice because it's a hosted and managed environment by us, Oracle, and it's completely free. However, I think 100% of all the technology you're going to see today can be utilized and exploited in any environment where you have an Oracle database using our REST API tech, which is ORDS. We've spent a lot of time in the last 7-8 years building up material to help new developers to our platform on-ramp to the tech. So we, of course, have documentation, and we have our own tag on Stack Overflow, and we have Oracle community forums, and we have GitHub libraries that Chris can show, and we have YouTube videos, and we both have blogs and Twitter feeds, and we even have an official Oracle REST Twitter account that you can follow. And we're trying to build up our community. So we want to welcome everyone to that community. We want to give you the stuff you can use to take advantage of this in your real world production lives as soon as possible. And Chris is a relatively new add to our team. He joins our product management team here. Ashley's here as well. And he's been spending the last few months going deep on building REST APIs to be able to take advantage of, like, from your Python apps. So I'm going to sit back and help Chris run through this lab.
Yeah.
If you do have questions, don't be shy. We have the Q&A in the Zoom, but we prefer to use the Slack channel if you can. And with that, Mr. Hoina, go ahead.
I will. Scott looks like he just raised his hand, though, so I'm not sure if we have a question in the chat or if we have one in the.
I'm going to say, Scott, send your message to me directly in the Zoom because we're going to get started on this, and we'll open up for live Q&A at the end if we have time.
He may have just been waving hello. So
we love that.
hey Scott. Yeah. So like Jeff said, Jeff mentioned two things. The first one is like I've been on this team since January. So I previously was, and I hate to say it, I'm sorry, but I was previously with IBM and mainframes. So relatively new to this team, but not so new to the industry, particularly databases. And then the second thing I wanted to mention was new developers. So it wasn't really a part of my previous role to be doing a lot of technical things, a lot of web and application development, and I certainly wouldn't consider myself even an intermediate developer. But what I will say is, well, I'll draw your attention to this radar chart here. I did something similar to this in a blog a couple months ago. So if you have already been reading some of the stuff that myself or Jeff's been posting, then you may have seen it. But the what I had in that blog was a little cheeky. It was kind of it was more humorous, but this is actually more serious. So I wanted to emphasize that since January, I've been acclimating myself. I've been getting myself up to speed in the Autonomous Database and Oracle REST APIs and Python development. And so I know that there are going to be a lot of far more competent and experienced people on this call, but perhaps there are not. Perhaps there are people that are similar level as me. I do not consider myself a super talented developer or anything, but we make it really easy to understand how to navigate in OCI and how to use these Oracle REST APIs. So it makes it a lot easier when you're trying to, learn a new environment, but then also learn a new language or a new framework. So I just say you can see where my strengths are, which are minimal at best in anything in all these domains. And I was able to, cobble together this Flask application that hopefully we'll show you later. But also get to the point to where I'm comfortable running through this workshop. So Jeff already mentioned more than I could have ever, but I wanted to emphasize this part here about the Autonomous Database and what that in tandem with the Oracle REST APIs can do for you. So I know that the core audience, the core persona here is developers, but I have this I have this thought of how these Oracle REST APIs, can bring autonomy to more than just like developers. So I was watching a YouTube video on pandas data frames, and it occurred to me. I said, oh, like maybe if I'm like a data analyst, I can utilize these REST APIs. I can, use the Python requests library, and I can pull down this data. And I can put it into a pandas data frame and visualize it, use it as a presentation or something like that. So I just thought like, wow, there's like so many things that you can do. I mean, we previously were on a call with a customer, and the question was, what can I do? What do I use these APIs for? And we struggled to answer the question because really the question, the answer is like literally anything. I mean, you think about what you want to do with this data, and you can do anything. You don't have to be a developer. There's just so many people out there that can utilize this. Anyhow, I'm just still fascinated by it. I mean, I'm sure I'm probably still in the honeymoon period, but I'm really enjoying all this stuff here. So hopefully you will too. I'm not going to go too much into detail about what's on this slide here, but you can kind of read along as I'm picking out these points here. But as far as the lab, the main things that we're going to be looking at are going to be the things that you see are highlighted. So we're going to do everything in OCI, database actions, previously SQL Developer Web. We are going to do some OAuth 2 authorization with some bearer tokens. We're going to create a client. And then we're going to do some get and post methods or operations, which you see there. So we have two different ways that we're going to go about enabling our objects, or in this case, tables. One of those is going to be auto rest, and then the other way is going to be fully customizable. So that's the way my brain works. I try to distill these things down into like their simplest, forms. And so we really have two ways that we're going to show you. So the auto rest is just simple mouse clicks. It's just right click, enable, you hit your curl command, and then you're off. And that's really easy if you want to just dip your toes into these REST APIs in the Autonomous Database. Within a few seconds, you you have this API. Now, once you get more comfortable with it and confident with it, you can create these modules. And within these modules, you can have, different types of operations or methods, gets, posts, whatever. You can apply business logic to it, SQL, PL SQL. So you can get like really fancy and really advanced with it. So, and we are going to do both of these ones. So I'm pretty excited about that. Now on to the workshop just overview. So if you've done this before, or if you're following along with the link that Tara shared, you'll see that there's actually 7 labs, but the lab 1 and lab 2 are like provisioning and creating an autonomous database. Those are pretty standard labs across a lot of these database labs. So we're not going to focus on those ones. We'll just operate under the assumption that, you're already at that point, or perhaps if you want to do that on your own, if you're reviewing this video later, you can come back to lab 3 once you've done that. And then lab 7 is actually cleaning up or just terminating your database. So if you have your tenancy, maybe you don't want to do that. So that's completely optional, but that's what lab 7 is. So you see here, we've got these 4 primary labs. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen for a second here so I can go ahead and switch. I don't know if we have any, questions or anything. I think
you're good so far.
Okay.
I would just say if you sign up for the Oracle Cloud account, you don't have to use that to run our hands-on labs, but if you want to, we have several hundred of those that cross the entire spectrum of all things database. And they are completely free, and you can use that environment to run through the technology you're going to see today. But if you happen to have an Oracle database already in your shop and you want to use that as your home base, you can do that too. But I find it's really nice for the always free. I have a personal cloud account that I can just sandbox stuff and play with, and it's always there in my browser. And I don't have to, consume a Docker or machine resources on my laptop when I just want to run a quick SQL statement. So I've been using it since it's launched as a service like 2 or 3 years ago. I think I've had like 3 outages over like 3 years, and they lasted like a couple of minutes. So I mean, I use it almost as my production environment. It's very nice, and it's got all the tech you need in it built in. So SQL Developer Web is there. You can run the REST APIs directly through your browser, which Chris is going to show us now. That was a long way of saying no questions, Chris.
That was great. I needed all that filler, so that's perfect. Let me go ahead and share this here. Make sure I got the correct screen. So many windows.
Sharing the screen is the hardest part.
Yeah, I just have so many windows open, so too many displays. Oh, just some light reading. All right, so let me go ahead and get into my tenancy here, and I'm going to switch between the workshop here. So let's just I'll assume that we're all following along together here, and then you should be able to see the intro get started, and then labs 1 and lab 2. So we kind of just did the intro. I mean, Jeff, you did more than the intro. We could probably skip that. So we're going to just jump right into this lab 3 here. Okay. So let me just start here. So we're going to get into our database actions. There's a CSV file that we'll pull down, and we'll actually load that into our autonomous database. So you can follow along if you have that link for the workshop, but I'll do my best to switch between the two here.
I'm a horrible backseat driver, Chris. So I apologize in advance, but I've seen a couple of comments. So just real quick to set the stage, what we're about to do via the Oracle Cloud and using an always free tenancy, or if you've got a pay tenancy, or if you want to create a trial with the link that was shown. In that cloud environment, in your tenancy, there is an Oracle autonomous database that you're going to create or that you're going to use.
Right here.
We want to build REST APIs to interact with that database. So in this lab, we're going to show you how to build REST APIs using the language of the database. So SQL and PL SQL. So you've got data in that database. Like Chris and I both use Strava to like record our bike rides and weightlifting sessions and hikes and that kind of stuff. And to be honest, I actually use Untapped more often. I use that to track beers that I try out when I travel. But you can get that data from these services, oftentimes in JSON or CSV dumps. And then it's fun to go put it in a database somewhere and use SQL against it. Because, you know, if you're a database person, you kind of think of things in SQL. So with this lab using things like SQL and PL SQL skills, you can build a REST API to interact with your data or with the stored procedures you have in your database. So when Chris was saying, well, hey, what can we use these REST APIs for? You know, it's kind of limited to your imagination. Like you could create a web application where you could browse or maintain the data that you've put into your database. Or if you wanted to add additional information to your tables, you know, you could create a REST API where you could post new data to your database. So instead of connecting directly to the database with something like SQL Plus or SQL Developer and writing, hey, insert into table A values 1, 2, 3, you simply do a post to HTTPS yada, yada, yada /ords/table. And our mid-tier, our web server, takes that HTTP request, turns it into a database workload, does that work, gets the answer from that insert being done, and returns it back down to your web app in a JSON document. And then you do your fancy visualization of that. So that's like a really dumb use case for a REST API. But the REST APIs we're talking about today are always with the database as the star of the show. So things in your database, whether they be objects or programs, and usually at the end of the day, it's you want to get data into the database or you want to get data out of the database.
You mentioned the you mentioned the Strava and Garmin. A couple of weeks ago, I was messing around with Fitbit has a TCX file, which is a training center XML file, and I was actually able to get that into there. So if anybody uses Fitbit or Garmin, you can actually data load these files into the autonomous database. So I think Scott mentioned something here about prerequisites. So the only prerequisite so far is I have my OCI account. So I've created this tenancy, and I actually already have these two databases. You can have two of these in an always free account, and I've already created them. But I can show you the create here is basically the same as if I was to actually create like this second one here. So I'm actually not changing anything, and we actually have everything pre-selected. So in our case, we have data warehouse. I mean, I'm not going to change the display name or the database name, but you can change that, and if there's always help here. Keep it on shared infrastructure. This is always free. You're not going. I believe with this one, like you're restricted onto, or not restricted, but it will auto select the most appropriate database for you. You're not going to be doing anything with any CPU auto scaling or changing anything to storage or anything like that. You will be given an admin login, but you'll need to create the password, and this is the part where you will want to hold on to that, because when we get into database actions, we're going to be doing some things with like usernames and passwords, and we're going to be you'd be doing it with as the admin. So you will want to retain that that password. This is going to be different. This is going to be a different password than when you first log in with your OCI account, like your single sign-on. It can be the same password, but I don't know if you'd want to do that anyway. And then that's it. So leave license included. You can put your your work email or personal email, or you can the same email that you had your OCI tenancy. You can keep that, and then you create your automatic click create, and it's like, depending on the region, it's a minute, 30 seconds to a minute to provision the.
This is the fastest way to create an Oracle database.
Yeah. And then we'll fast forward, like, let's say that I just did that, and then boom, I'm here. And then what'll happen is actually you'll already be taken to this screen, and then this this, what you see here on the left-hand side, will turn like an orangish yellow color. It'll say provisioning to this green available, and then you're ready to go. And then since you or I were already logged in as the admin, you can go straight to database actions here. And this might prompt me to do my password here. So I was logged in earlier, so it may have already, yeah, it may remember me. I was just in here and deleting some of the stuff that we had previously. So if I go back to, so now we're in, if I go back to the lab here,
so cool piece of trivia, this page that Chris is showing, SQL Developer Web, it's running via REST APIs that are being delivered by Oracle REST Data Services. So we use our technology to build the technology that we're showing you today. So behind all of these buttons and all of these clicks, it's making API calls that we've built that are being delivered by the same engine that'll deliver the APIs that you build in this lab.
And in most cases, for most of these processes, you can click the bottom left hand here and you can see, like, if it'll let me hover over this, you can get an idea of, like, if you read that URL, you could get a pretty good idea of like what the process was, you know. So anyway, I digress, but okay, so our first lab here, let me go ahead and switch between. I'm just gonna put this guy right here, so that way it's easy. So all right, so we're just going to go straight to our SQL developer, our SQL worksheet, and we are going to take this CSV file. It's a very small CSV file. We're going to download it, and then we are going to simply drop and drag into. It's very difficult for me to see with this share, this little share thing here, but I'll do my.
So I'm seeing your SQL Dev Web desktop.
Okay, yeah, it's the zoom that's kind of like in the way here. So let me go ahead. I'm going to download this, and then that's in my downloads folder here. So okay, so the workshop actually says to go to data load right here, and then you can click on this icon to take this CSV file and put it in here, and we'll do that in a second. So I just want to show you there's always like 3 or 4 different ways that you can do stuff in here. So data load, that's like one option right there. It's really simple if you're already in the SQL worksheet. Like, if, say for instance, you're like over here in your objects, you can do that over here also. Okay, and then even in another version, you can actually, from this main screen, you can go to data load here and then load data from a local file, and then it'll start to look very similar right here. Yeah, so that's kind of where we are at this point, but I'm going to go back to, I'm going to turn this off because that's probably hogging up a lot of memory. All right, so right now I haven't touched the keyboard at all. I'm just doing mouse clicks, right? So I'm going to download, or I'm going to upload this. I've got this. Okay, and so Autonomous automatically recognizes what's going on. So you see this is a very small CSV file. It's 3 columns. You know, it's not very many rows in here. We're going to be mainly focusing on column 2. We're going to be doing some manipulation with parameters that are referencing column 2. So you'll see that in a little bit, but and in this case, I don't really need to do much else. I mean, you can drop this, like, say for instance, if you want to preview more rows, we don't even have 10 rows, so we don't need to change that. But
imagine that your data is much more fun than this.
Yeah, but we don't need to mess with it. So and then here, generally we do a good job of auto recognizing the data type. I do know, just because of the workshop, I know that I need to change that to varchar and then 4000. We don't have any primary keys or anything in here, so I don't need to mess with that. I am going to change this to CSV data though, because we referenced that in the workshop, and I think that's it here. Let me just make sure that I'm not missing any steps. Yeah. And then this is cool. We we've peppered throughout like the different types of the data language and the SQL. So you can see here like what we're actually doing, which I think is really neat. So I'll talk about this a little bit more because in this latest iteration, we've included a toggle for like actually looking at the code. So like when you're just doing like right clicks and stuff like that, there's actually a bunch of stuff going on behind the scenes and you can actually take a look at that code. So you can kind of treat the autonomous database as like, you know, like a pair programming team, you know, like it can actually teach. I cheat a lot when I use this because if you remember that radar chart, like I'm not very strong in SQL or PL SQL or DDL, but I can infer from what I'm seeing in that code what the heck is going on, and it's very helpful for me, and it really speeds up like my comprehension of like you know what's going on. Okay, so enough talking. So we'll hit finish here. And then, you know, depending on the size, it might take, you know, but it might take longer than this, but that's it. So let me see what well, I'll go ahead and open this. You can just, again, I'm just doing right clicks and I can take a look at what's going on my table here. So there you go. You see that, but let me go back to the workshop here, make sure that I didn't miss anything. I think the only other thing that we're doing here is we're just gonna REST enable. So this is kind of where we are right here. So the next thing that we're going to do is we'll show you, if you remember this, that's the first slide I showed you. There's two different ways that we can REST enable these objects, or in this case, these tables. So we can just do the simple, you know, quick and easy right click, REST enable, auto REST enable, or we can do a little bit more advanced and we have a little bit more control and customization. That's when we create the modules and you know, there's other contents in there as well. But let me go back here. Okay, so it's just a right click or a, you know, control mouse click if you're on Mac, and we're gonna go down here and then that's it. We're gonna enable our table. Okay, you can change the object alias if you want to like obscure the table name, for instance, if you wanted to, but we're not going to in this case.
If you change the alias though, you would see that the URL changes to reflect that.
Yeah, here, I'll just do that. You can see how that changed right there, but I'm gonna, because we reference this throughout the lab, so I'm not going to change it. And this is I might be getting ahead of myself, but this kind of comes into play with like security when we're doing some of the OAuth stuff. So when you auto REST, like you're automatically creating a role and you're automatically creating well, you're not, but we are for you, automatically creating a role and a privilege. And you'll see we'll have a role and privilege list later on. You'll see that will already be in there, which I think is kind of cool. And then if you want, you can require authentication. We're not going to do authentication quite yet, but we will. And this is what I was talking about. This is new. I don't know, maybe I'm just like a simple person and like stuff like this just like fascinates me and I think it gets me excited, but this is what I was talking about. So, you know, when I was first introduced to this, I wouldn't know syntactically how to write this out without referencing a manual or something like that. So it's really nice to see like all these clicks and all these things that I'm doing are associated with, you know, everything that I see here, which I think is really cool. And it's just like the show code is in pretty much everything now. You'll see in like every single one of these little sliders, it's popping up. Let me make sure that we're not doing anything else. We're okay. So
there's lots more to cover.
Yeah.
But that code that was shown, that is exposing or demonstrating our PL SQL API that ORDS uses. So as you're registering things for APIs, there's a PL SQL API that's used to do that. And so if you need to automate something into a pipeline and you want to have a script to deploy to do this stuff, this is the code that those scripts would run to flip switches in the database for your REST APIs.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention that, like, if at any point you're like, I don't know what the heck this is very helpful. Like, oh, Jesus. Let me make sure that we're.
See, that's the beauty of a live demo, Chris.
Yeah.
I'll check.
Because I had Maybe it's because I had something open previously, but let's enable this, and then I'll just use like this as
There is built-in context-sensitive help that
Yeah.
worked last time Chris tried it.
It may have been a user error. Let's see if I can manipulate it here. I'll come back to it, but what I was getting at was at any point, if you have any questions or anything, you can click that and it'll take you to that section in the documentation, which for me has been super helpful because I would be angering a lot of people if every time I had a question I went to somebody, but you can usually read up on it and get it. So okay, so the idea here is this is unsecure. So we're going to look at these curl commands, and this is relatively new also here. We've got all of our methods or operations. I think you may use those terms interchangeably, right? So we've got get all, get single. I think we're going to stick with get all. This I really like because curl is yet another thing that I do not have a lot of experience with, but this really helps. So I think the default is command prompt, but since I'm on a Mac, I'll go with bash, but also I want to show everybody on here the Oracle Cloud infrastructure, the Cloud Shell, and that's bash also. So let me make sure that I have selected the correct one. So you can see how they're all just like a little different. So I have bash here. I'm going to copy that. And then since you are the admin, you should already be here. You got these two icons here. You've got Cloud Shell and Code Editor. Cloud Shell is what we're going to use. This is basically a terminal within OCI. And then Code Editor, I was just doing some things in it yesterday. It looks very similar to VS Code. I believe it's the same code base that VS Code was. I can't remember what the original open source fork is, but it has a very similar visual aesthetic to it. So if you haven't ever used Cloud Shell, it might take a little while for it to spin up, which I don't know. That wasn't too terrible here. So all we're going to do is take that curl command, and you can actually you don't have to use OCI. We just want to show you that that's available to you. You can just drop the curl command in here, but you can also do the same thing, in like Postman or Insomnia or some other like API testing or debugging tool. You can put that URL into your browser. You can, just do it in your terminal. I'll just show you, it's the same thing, but we just did a get request. We just did a get request on this table, and it gives us all of the, it gives us all the contents. It gives us the JSON payload. What else? And then if I want to, I can show you, you can just take is that right? There's a little quote at the end here. And you can take this, and then I'm on Firefox, so it kind of prints it out like that. So if there are extensions out there to pre-print it, but like the raw data, that's what it looks like here. And then you can even like look at all the headers and everything. So you have like a lot of great information. So I know that this is like a very trivial table. There's nothing novel about it, but you can see all the information that's provided to you with just like a get all API. And we haven't even attached any like fancy business logic or any SQL or PL SQL. We haven't like added any like parameters or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, it's like the world is your oyster when it comes to this stuff, which I think is great. All right, so let me exit out of here. Yeah, so that's we'll leave Cloud Shell up because we're actually going to be using it like pretty extensively throughout. So let me make sure that we're at the very end over here. Yeah, so we'll do a batch load operation on lab 4, which is like 2-point-something million rows. So it's pretty big. It's pretty big CSV file. What we'll do is this CSV file is in object storage, so we're actually going to use a curl command. We're going to take little bits and pieces. We're going to take a curl command, and then save it locally, and then we'll actually put it into this table that we just created. So I'm going to pause here just to see if there's any like questions or anything. I know that there's Q&A. Why do we need the curl command? I'm not sure. Was it answered?
For this one, for gets, you don't really need to use
Yeah.
curl, but when you use this automatic feature, it's the easiest way to get to hello world for your REST APIs. So in ORDS, you can say, I don't want to write any code, just give me the REST APIs for my table or my view or my stored procedure. And for tables, you get a get, you get to get. We give you an endpoint where you can get one record or all records or some records, and gets work just fine in your browser, so you don't need curl. But we also give you a post and a put and a delete handler that you can use to upload, change records, and delete records. And you generally can't do those in your browser, not directly anyway. We've built a REST API client into SQL Dev Web. I don't know if we show that or not. If we have time, we can demo that. So if you're doing like testing or documentation or just playing around on puts, posts, and deletes, having curl handy is really nice. But most of us also have like a REST client. Postman is by far the most popular one. I use one called Insomnia. There's like a dozen more. It's built into VS Code. VS Code has a nice REST API client built in. I can't remember what it's called.
Thunder.
Thunder.
I have it open right now. Thunder client.
Thunder client.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will say curl's not user friendly, which is why we built these dialogues into the UI, so we can give you a really nice head start to not just building the APIs, but also using them.
But I mean, for this use case, the curl commands that you're using, it's like a very small like area. You know, you're not going to deviate too much from the same kind of statements. So, you know, take that for what it's for what it is. I don't, you know, you may never use it. So, all right. So what we want to do here is, let me just set the stage. So for this lab here, we got this big CSV file. We're going to pull it down from object storage. We're going to save it locally into our shell. Then we're going to use this curl command, this batch load curl, this batch load API, and we're going to take that recently saved file, the CSV file, and then we're going to add it to our table, and then we'll go from there. We're going to go back to the SQL, the SQL worksheet, run some SQL. Yeah, so let's do that. So we want to go back to our CSV data table here. We're going to go to curl command, and then we're going to go to batch load. And again, I'm selecting bash. Now, if you're following along, I have, am I in full screen here? Let me, I have like a scratch pad here for everything that I'm saving, because we're gonna use these, we're gonna dissect these curl commands. So let me just make sure that I'm in bash here. I'm in batch load and then bash. Now on my end, for some reason, it's not appending the batch load at the end. So I'm going to have to put that in manually, but you'll notice that when you're in the workshop, if you want, you can just copy this, what you have here, because it adds that in there. And then you'll just need to change whatever URI that you have, you know, for the
A lot of developers I know don't like automatic features. They want to write the code and do all of the code heavy stuff themselves, which we'll show you next. But if for no other reason, this auto rest feature gives you this batch load post option, which is super useful for not streaming, but loading data up to your table. So I was able to get, I think, 10 million records uploaded to my table from my house here in North Carolina to my tenancy in Ashburn, Virginia, in less than 25 seconds. And all I did was right click enable, and then go into Postman and say, here's my CSV file. Here are my OAuth 2 client and token. and post to this API, and ORDS automatically batch loaded, not row by row, batch loaded those, can't remember if it was 5, I think maybe it was 10 million records into the table for me. And then, of course, since I REST enabled the table, once the data was in there, I could then use gets and put some posts to interact with that data. So it's a super nifty mechanism.
Let me try and pretty this up here. All right, so if you're following along, you have your batch load command, right? We're saving that, okay, and then we'll come back to that. So we'll pause in there for a second. And then if you're at this stage right here, we have this curl command that's already written out for you. It is basically going to this object storage here. Well, I'm sorry. It's going to this object storage, and then it is retrieving this file. And then we're just basically saying, oh, we're outputting this, and we're going to call it this 2m.csv, and we're going to save it to our directory in the Cloud Shell, right? So I'll copy here, and fingers crossed, hopefully everything works. We'll go back here to our Cloud Shell. We'll put this in here, and then if we should hit enter, and yeah, so it's in there now. I may have jumped ahead of myself, but you can. I don't know if I want to go back, because we add in, we add in some. Well, I'll just. Let me see. I'll just do this really quick here. I think it's is it rn 2m.csv. Oh, rm.
While you're doing that, I've had a couple questions come in. People are asking, hey, what about PL SQL? What about PL SQL? What about PL SQL? So yeah, you can auto REST enable that stuff. And we're going to do some PL SQL later in the lab, or you can write your own PL SQL. Make a REST API on that. And yeah, if that PL SQL returns information, either as like an out parameter, just like a simple date, or something more interesting like a ref cursor, yeah, most definitely our APIs support that. So just stay tuned. And I have examples of how to do this on my blog. I can put that in the group chat if you want.
Yeah, that'll be in lab 5. So I'm not sure if anybody saw what I did. I just removed that file, rm, removed that file. And that was a just this week thing that I learned. So that's great. But what I want to do is I want to include some of this other stuff that we have in here, okay? Because you can see what Jeff was talking about. You could see like the total time. It's like 20 seconds or something like that. So let's see here. We want to not seeing those questions. It might be in the chat here.
I tackled all the questions. You're free.
Oh, okay. Actually, I was correct. So this part here, well, in case you missed it, we'll do it again here. So it's in there now. So you can see I've got the 2m CSV. So I'm sorry, the batch load portion is what we want to add in here. So we're going to take that. We're going to take this curl request, and then we're going to start adding some things to it. Like we're going to say what's the total time, for putting this into the database here. We're going to say that this is what the data is. The data type is binary. And then, yeah, we got the content type. So we're just adding in some extra headers in here, and then the admin and password. And remember when you create as the admin, when you created that when you provision that database and it asked you to add in a password, you as the admin, that's what we're gonna use right here. So down here.
You don't have to use database authentication, and we actually recommend that you don't. It just happens to be the easiest thing to get started with. And as we get later down in the lab, we'll show you an alternative authentication mechanism, which is the OAuth 2 stuff.
Better one and cleaner one.
By the way, Chris, it took me, this will make you happy. It took me like 3 hours to figure out this curl command to do exactly what I wanted. And that was copying and pasting from Stack Overflow mostly.
Oh, I just had the curl man page documentation up and just read.
It's like a book.
Yeah, it's
curl's very powerful, but it's
It's like both
It's like regular expressions or grep and sed. You know, some people have entire careers based off knowing that stuff.
The regular expressions I could do without, but they are great. So this is the stuff that I'm going to append or add into the end of my URL. So you guys see what I'm doing here. So I have like this one that I copied from my autonomous database that has the correct URI here, but I don't want to use this one because this one might not even exist. I don't know. And then I think I might be able to just take this guy here and then just put it here, and then I can change. I should be able to just change this.
Hey, if it's not too much bother, can you bump your text size up just a bit?
Oh yeah,
Ashley's reminding me that we're too old to read the text.
Well, I'm on this like widescreen too, so it's probably not helping the cause. But I just recently changed my password here, so I guess if you want to like hack into my database, you can for the next hour. There's not much there, so you
better change it because this is going to be on YouTube.
Yeah, so so this is what you'll end up with here. Those of you that are familiar with curl, you don't actually need the X anymore. I was reading a blog post on one of the maintainers of curl. He's saying it's verbose, it's not necessary. So and then if you know anything about curl, you can change a lot of this stuff, you know, like the H in header, you know, you can make it like, you can do like this instead, you know. So there's a lot of flexibility with it. I noticed I was trying to break curl earlier this week to doing different like configurations, but you can kind of like mix and match. It's kind of neat. So if everything goes as planned, or if I'm doing everything correctly, I should be able to just add this in here. And then this is a good sign because it's thinking. So when I have this blinking cursor, so nothing's broken yet. So I'm pretty confident that things are going as expected. And this feels like forever, but I did this yesterday or the day before. It was like 24 seconds or something. So I'm sitting here and waiting, and it's yeah. So we'll pause here for a second. So there's no errors. That's good. It shouldn't be, because it was just a file that I saved in object storage. I didn't touch it. I didn't even open it or anything. And we got 2,097,000 some odd rows here. And then you can see here, this is the time. So that was the timeout or the write out right here, the time total. Okay, that's that option that we put in there. So it's just under, or 20 seconds, just under 21 seconds for 2 million rows. It's 3 columns, 2 million rows. I mean,
it's not bad.
Yeah, I mean,
you can get it faster. Like, so like if you go look at the docs, this endpoint has like 10 or 15 parameters you can throw on. So you can actually influence like the array's size, like how many records are we committing per batch, and you can make some other changes. So if you're a fan of like Connor McDonald and his performance blogs, me and him got into a Twitter fight on how fast we could get this to work. So do you have a, you know, out of the box, it's not bad, but if you really need to push it to the limit, you can use some tricks to get it even faster.
I have that song stuck in my head now. I just take it to the limit. I don't know. It doesn't matter. All right, so we'll go back here, and then we got a little refresh button here, and we should be able to, same thing like I did before. We'll just take a look at the right click, and then we can look at the data, and you can see that we've got everything in there. I'm not going to scroll all the way to the very end. And then if you are following along with the workshop, this is where we are here. So we can do a count. So you can just copy this right here, but we're going to select, right? So select count from this table. And then we can run our script here. We can look at the script output. So that's 2097155. That should match, right? Oh, that's plus what we had already in the table. So just added it into the end there. And let's see what we've got. We're going to, I'll pause here for a second. So this took me like a few times to figure out, like, you know, what we were doing here. this is like the prelude to the next lab. So what we're doing here is we're creating this procedure. We're creating this procedure, and then we are going to test it. And the reason why we do that is because this is like a more manual way of querying. Because what we want to do is we want to show you like, hey, here's what we're going to be doing in the next lab. When we create a module and we create these different handlers, we're going to add logic, and the logic's going to resemble this. So you'll see that here in a second. So first thing to do is we're going to create this procedure here. We've got our inputs and our outputs, and we've got the data type, and then you can see what we're doing right here. So we're saying select the count from the CSV, and then where column 2 is this. So we're basically, eventually what we're going to do is we're going to feed the database an input, and it's going to be that column 2, which like 15 minutes ago I mentioned, like we're going to be focusing on column 2. That's why. So we'll just copy this. It did some weird things in the spacing for me, so I want to make sure that I have this correct here. I believe this will work as is, but I think I can just do this just to clean it up. And then I think that should work. So my apologies for the lowercase. I think at the very, very minimal, it should be sentence case. So I'll fix that. I may even get a little bold and caps everything. Okay, so our procedure was compiled, so we've got that. So we're going to go back here to our workshop, and then we're going to take this PLC, we're going to take this script here, and then I just mentioned like we are expecting this input, and that's what we've got right here. So this is our input. This is A1. So basically, what we're doing is we're just trying to find all the rows, a count of all the rows that satisfy this condition, where column 2 has A1 in it, basically. So go back here and then run this script. And I don't actually know how many it's going to be. So 8204, that sounds right. And I think this is the end of the lab. Yeah, this is the end of the lab. This is basically all this lab is doing is just kind of like setting the stage. This is like building on this narrative of okay, you've auto rested these tables, but it's good to a point, and we've very quickly reached that point. And so now what we need to do is we need to kind of go a little bit more advanced with these.
We have customers that have built applications 100% using the auto feature. So we're not trying to like bash the auto stuff. I'll explain it this way. As soon as you get to the point where you're like, oh, I like this API, but it would be nice if it could do this instead, that's when you leave the land of the auto feature, because the only configuration for auto is on and off. So you like what we give you, or you live with it, or you're like, hey, I need something that acts differently. Like, I don't like the status code you're using on the response, or hey, I want to build an exception in that traps user error and returns nice error messages, or hey, I don't want all the columns in the table, only want 3 of them. That's when you're going to start building your own APIs. So I kind of think about it as like you're at a restaurant and you're given a menu, and you can do the fixed course meal, or you can ad hoc order a la carte, or you can do like my wife and I do. We do both, and then we just share with each other. So it's not good, it's not bad. It just is what it is.
And while you were talking, Jeff, you could like conceivably have just this API that's just as is, this endpoint that's just as is with no logic or anything. I'm not sure if you saw what I did here, but you can add in like a query parameter to the end of this API. I'm actually pretty impressed that I was able to do that, because I was not very confident that I could get that. But all I did was just add in this question, column 2.
We've only shown the endpoint where you get everything. It's got built-in filtering So you could say, hey, just give me employees whose first name starts with the letter J, or employees who make more than $2,500.
And you can stack those too. I mean,
Yep.
Jeff has articles where, I mean, your untapped article where it's like, fits all these different types of parameters. So you can put that into the URL as a query parameter.
And you can add sorting as well. So you can say, show this to me, salary, decent.
I wanted to, I couldn't remember the order, how to do it, but it's like, yeah, you can order by whatever, or yeah. So, but that's just, simple shorthand. So, so let's go back to lab 5 here. I mean, just curious why Firefox and not Safari. I don't know why Safari runs really slow for me. I don't know if it's because I have a bunch of stuff running in the background. I don't know. I couldn't tell you why. I don't even know why I started using it. You could use Safari, of course. Hopefully that's a sufficient answer. I'm sorry.
Why do you go to this church and not that church?
I really couldn't tell you.
It's very subjective.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people like Firefox for the security, personal security it offers over Chrome, but we try to test our stuff across all of the major browsers.
Yeah. I will say Chrome is very, very challenging to use. It is a bit of a memory. What's a nice term? It consumes a lot of memory. It makes it slows down my system. So it might just be the version of the MacBook that I have. So I hope that's sufficient. So we're going. So I don't really know how to explain this, but it's probably better to show it. So if basically what we're doing is we are manually going to create a module, and this is a pretty common term, but within that module, ideally we were going to have similar things, or better yet, think of microservices. Say for instance, you're on a team that's tasked with a certain portion of a certain application. You might have 2 or 3 different functions, on that team. So, and perhaps everything is done through APIs. So we have this module and it's got different operations. It's got get, post, put, delete, and then there's logic within those different operations. So it could be a get on this thing. It could be where you could have a get on something else. You can have a put. So I'll show you. So this is for me where it got really challenging to make sense of it all. So we're kind of forking. We just did auto rest, and now we're going to kind of step back and start from the beginning again, but we're going to do it we're going to fully customize this. So I should go back here. So we're going to rest. Okay. You can do that one of 2 ways. You can click this here, or you can do the hamburger menu. You can click there. This will take us here. And this is just our overview. So it's really quickly shows us okay, what do we have? We got modules, we got auto rest. If I click that, you could see here's the auto rest. Here's what we just did with our simple right clicks. And then you can see, if I go back here to roles and privileges, there's going to be some other roles that are already by default. But if you look here, this top one, this is the role that was created for us when we auto rest enabled that table. And then if we go to privileges, where is it? It's right here. So you see we have this privilege, this auto rest privilege that was already created for us also. So, but we're going to go back to modules. And then we're going to create a module here. So if you're following along, you can copy and paste a lot of this stuff here. So we're doing module name and base path, and then we'll do some things with the privileges here. So I'm just copying this module name here.
You'll see us use these dot notations, almost like a URL in the examples, but it's a free text field. The module names, these are just way to organize related REST APIs together. And at the module level, you can protect access to the endpoints by module if you want. So it's totally up to you how you want to maintain and organize your REST APIs. But the sort of pseudo object we've created for that for you is this module thing. So all of the modules will have a common, each module has a base URI that's used to say, oh, okay, we're in this set of APIs. And so that's the most important thing to pay attention to here is not necessarily the module name, but the base path.
Which when I add this base path in here, you can see how it adds it into this URI here.
And there was a question earlier, Chris, someone was like, hey, what's the max page size I can have? And I told him, well, the default's 25, but you can turn it off and we won't do any paging, which can be good or bad. And you can also just make it whatever you want. So we automatically paginate the results of your SQL queries. So those JSON documents that come back, there's a reason why it's always 1 to 25, then with the link to the next page. That's sort of the magic we're doing for you, so you don't have to code that part.
Yeah, and there's the actual definition. Yeah, right there. But yeah, I forgot. I mean, you have show code here, and when you're doing the modules. So like, if this is your first time doing this, like when I took me a few times to do this, I was doing modules, and then I got into the templates and the handlers. At each stage, I was looking at this code, just trying to get a better understanding for like what was happening under the covers. Because eventually, I'll have to take the training wheels off, and I'll need to be doing a lot of this scripting manually. But for somebody who's new, database actions makes it a whole heck of a lot easier to get this stuff ready, or get this stuff up and running. We're not working with privileges yet. So I think, let me make sure that I'm doing this correctly. So we're not protecting anything. Yeah.
I think it has you make it naked first, and then we come back later.
Yeah. So that, and then
you want to think about security early. Like as soon as this leaves your machine and it's going to go someplace where others can access it, you're going to want to start having the security built in, because the last thing you want is to accidentally publish an open data set with your company or organization's data. There are use cases where you do want to have an open data set, but you always want that to be a voluntary thing, which is why we make you choose not protected in that dropdown. You have to physically say, oh yeah, no protection.
Yeah. And then I'm just making sure that I'm not missing anything. So we should be able to hit create. So we've just created a module. So you'll see here, we have this API catalog. I think it will, so we have just a shell right now. There's actually nothing going on yet. So like, we're just kind of like starting to build this thing out. So that's why there's nothing really to show for it, and then the next thing we want to do is we want to create these templates, and hopefully this starts to make sense. So like I said, we're building a home for these APIs or these endpoints to live in, and so like this is our home right here. So we want to create the template, and then if I quickly move through the templates and then the handlers, hopefully it'll make sense. So if you are following along in the lab here.
Templates are about like, how are we modeling the object, like the API, like what is the thing that this is like the address for that object that we're going to manipulate with the APIs. And then the handlers are where like the action comes in. What are we going to do on that thing?
Yeah. All right, so this is, I mean, you can pretty much tell that like this endpoint is going to be expecting like an ID for something. We're not sure yet, but that's what we're getting at. And that's it for templates. So got that. I skipped through this, but that slider had a check mark that said take me to handler, and so I think that's we can that's where we're at right now. Let me just make sure. So what Jeff was saying was, we've established the home, we've established like the location in that home, and now what we're going to do is we're going to say like, okay, within the home at this location, what's the action that we're going to do? It's like go in the home, go to the kitchen, make eggs, something like that. That might be a terrible analogy, so maybe Tara can edit it out if it doesn't make sense in post.
Well, you're not making eggs, you're getting an egg.
Right. Or delete eggs, put the eggs in the trash.
Yeah.
So we got get, post, put, and delete. And for this one, I've already forgotten. I think it's just a get, right? Yeah. Yeah. So if you recall, this is what we just did in lab 4. It's either lab 3 or lab 4. We just added this in here. I want to make sure that I don't need to add anything else, like with the collection, the source type. I think it just stays collection query.
So if you know it's only going to be one record, you can change it from collection query to collection item, and that basically turns off the pagination. But it's up to you. You probably, if you're going to talk about multiple things, you would use the default collection type. And if you're going to do a specific item in that thing, then you would switch it to the collection item, so you don't have the paging logic come in.
And again, if we look at the show code, you can see what's going on here. We've got the module name and then the pattern. So it's kind of like hierarchical, right? We've got our method or operation. It's going to be a get. And then we've got the actual logic, like the thing that we're going to be doing within this handler here. So I think that's it. I think we're at the stage now where we can just hit create. If I can click properly. Make sure I'm scrolling. I'm scrolling in a separate screen over here. Okay. And now we've got a couple ways that we can, I mean, there's tons of ways that you can test this, but within database actions, we can take a look at the work that we've just done here. So again, we're expecting an ID. So that's going to be that column 2. And I'm just going to stick with A1, which is what we've been doing up until this point. So
it's very important that bind notation that you're using in the matches the bind variable name in the query. So when ORDS sees /ID in the template, it knows to look for that value in your select query. So if Chris, if you change that query to select star from where call to equals :X, X would be null because there's no way to pass a value to X because we're using that ID to marry that together. So they're not the same by accident. They're the same intentionally.
Oh wait, ID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not the only way to do this. You could also pass it as a header. But this is one of the easiest ways is to communicate that via the URI or via the REST API address.
So if I do that, you can see how I'm looking for that A1, and I have all these. I have this nice output here. I could go this route also and look at it in the browser.
So scroll to the bottom.
Yeah. See if I can get this up while we're looking here.
There's the links.
So,
So we're dealing with a collection. There's more than one record that has that term. So we want the paging. So you would use collection. If we knew it was only a single thing, like maybe it's someone's employee ID, and hopefully we don't share those, then you would just the one record and no links. So you kind of need to know your data model when you build these. It shouldn't be an accident that you accidentally, you shouldn't accidentally or unintentionally get more records back when you were just expecting one.
And then I just opened up Insomnia. So Insomnia and what's the other one? Swagger. Postman, yeah. And then if this is your preferred, I just did the same thing in here, and you can take a look. And then if you want, you can look at the different headers and things as well. So I think that's very helpful to have different options, but I have to turn this off because it sounds like my computer's about to go to the moon. So
you need to quit using that as an excuse to get a brand new computer. You've been here 4 months. You already want a new computer.
I know, but they just launched the new line. So I've come to expect a certain lifestyle, and I'm accustomed to a certain lifestyle here. All right, so we just did the get on here. So what I want to do now, and this is what the workshop commands us to do, is we'll scroll down here. We're going to go back up to the top level of the module that we just created. Okay, and we're here now. And I think what we're doing now is we're going to create this next template here. So this is the template we're calling it biz logic. So if you recall that procedure that we did in the previous lab where we created the function and then we tested that to get the number of rows for A1, which is like 8204. We're doing that here. So we're going to create this template. And then this is where I might rely. Jeff, you might do a better job explaining our justification for in like 2 screens for why we're using a post for this as opposed to a get. So we're and when we get into like the
so
bind parameters,
this is where we get into the religion of the RESTful architectural style.
Yeah.
So if I have a get handler, I should, as an API consumer, it's kind of a binding contract between me and you that I'm not going to change anything in my system. I'm just going to get information out. So there's no like side effects. Like if I do a get, that shouldn't create some record in the system. Or maybe there's a logging change made, but like there shouldn't be any changes to the object that we're interacting with specifically. When we're dealing with PL SQL can do a lot of things. In your PL SQL logic, you could bring back information like a get would, and that PL SQL program could also do other things like make changes to the object that's being modeled. If that's happening, it should probably be a post. But if it's PL SQL and simply you're only running a select in that PL SQL and nothing else is happening, then you're more than welcome to do it as a get. What a lot of API developers will do when they're first starting out is kind of ignore those rules and just do everything as gets and posts without really differentiating between the two. And the danger of that is you're going to alienate the partners and the developers and the consumers of your REST APIs because they're not, you're violating those contracts. Like you could make the APIs confusing. Like I don't understand what's happening here. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question, I hope.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, like, there's one small statement here in this task in number 8, and I think that's like the small justification for why we're doing this as a post rather than a get, is that we're actually like posting or submitting a value to get something back. So I think maybe that like may be the small like reason for why we're doing that. So let me go back.
I screw up when I write these labs. I might not have been paying attention. Yeah, it could totally be a get. I might have been showing a post just to show you, hey, you can do post here. So the way we set ORDS up, we don't enforce those architectural rules. It's not like a religion where we send you to get punished if you break the rules. We just give you the tools to build your APIs, and then it's kind of up to you to how you deploy those.
All right, so if you're following along in the what's our time?
We're at 1:15, or like an hour and 15 minutes in. Mostly my fault, Chris, because I talk too darn much.
Okay. Well, let me move through this here. I'm not even sure like what our time was, but whatever. Tara, you tell us what we need to do, and we'll just keep moving. So let me scroll back up to the top over here. So, or sorry, I think you said something. But
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, you can keep going, maybe wrap up this lab, and then we'll keep the Slack channel open afterwards. So if anyone's keeping going with the rest of the labs, we'll be there to answer any questions.
Yeah, I'll like take my lunch and then just stay on the Slack channel after this, and I'm not done with
Everyone has to finish before you eat, Chris. Come on.
Okay, yeah. So let's go ahead. We'll move here. So we're at this template right here, and then we'll quickly copy and paste. So I think we did a pretty good job explaining like what the heck it is that we're doing here. But let me find what it is that we're copying. So this is the BizLogic template, and we shouldn't need to do anything else here. Again, you can look at the code to see like what's happening in the background here, and then we'll create, and then we're automatically, because we're automatically going to go right into the handler here. And if you scroll down, you should see the right? Our PL SQL here. So it should look similar because we just saw this. We just saw this in that previous lab, okay? With some slight changes. We have to do some more defining after we add this in here, right? Because, yeah, well, you'll see here in a second, particularly with like the output is one thing that we need to work with here. So we'll put this procedure in here, and then let me make sure that we don't have anything else that we need to do. Yep, so that's pretty simple. We'll hit create. And then I think if you just run this, like, I don't think anything will happen. I think it'll just kind of time out. Or yeah, even if I put in an ID right here, you could see like there's still some stuff missing, right? It's not gonna actually like give us anything. Okay. And the reason why is we actually want to go and well, I'll go through like what is that we're doing here. So we're creating a parameter, and I'll show you like hopefully like as we do it, like it'll start to make sense like why it is that we're doing this. But you can copy and paste. So parameter name and then the bind variable name is going to be output. So what we want to do, because we just named it, we have output here. So that's the parameter name.
Since we're building this API, we have to define what we want to be on the response header in the response body. So if I want to return back a message or a status code, these parameters allow us to do that, and they allow us to tie it back to things in our code block. So the output from my program, I'm going to use that
right here
to put on a header or to put on the response, which in this case would be a JSON document.
Yeah, so we're going to do output. Those are the same. So the source type is like how we're, you may have just said this because I was just typing, so I'm not sure, but is
Those
like
are where you want to put it.
Yeah. So you have, it can be in the header. So like when we were just in the insomnia and I showed you like all the header information, it can be in there. It can be in the response body, or it can actually be appended to the URI, like as an array, a key value array. I think that's correct, right? That's how it would come through.
Headers are good for like a single value, like single items. If you've got like a bunch of stuff, you want to put that in the body. Yeah. But you could have multiple headers, you know, you could return.
So
you
we're
don't
doing
have to use the body if you don't want to.
we're doing response. I'm sorry, I'm trying to like rush through this here. We want to change parameter type because what we had was, or what we're working with is an integer, right? Because we're trying to return a count of numbers. So integer.
That'll just tell ORDS not to quote the value because we know it's a number.
And then access is output because we're receiving it basically. So we want ORDS to send it back out to us. And then this is what all of our code looks like here.
And we made the bind name and the parameter name the same. They don't have to be. The parameter name is going to be the JSON attribute label. So if you made it Bob, the response would be Bob is 4. But instead, it's going to show output is 4.
And then that's it down there. And let me make sure I scroll through. See if I missed anything. Okay, so our lab is saying that we can go back to here and we can do a curl command. And then I'm going to go to bash, and then I think in my example I have A1 here, so you'll see what happens here. We should see that 8204. We should see that count come through for A1, and then we can copy this. I think my shell should still be open. And also, this is just like an FYI. See how it says value? I've done this a couple ways. I've done it where I leave the value, I leave it as is. or I just have just empty quotes. For me, it worked either way. So that might be something to consider. So I should be able to put this in here and see. I say that it might not work, but it did work for me when I did that. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense. Like what we just did, we added that PL SQL. We're expecting a specific a specific piece of information. In this case, it's going to be A1, and then the output is going to be what we just established for that bind parameter in that last step, and then it gives us this integer in the response body. Like this is the response body from that post request. I think I explained that pretty well. Did I miss anything?
Everyone's on mute, so no one can disagree with you.
Yeah.
Everyone's shaking their heads. Yes, that was awesome.
I know a lot of this stuff is trivial, and we want to try and share this with like the broadest audience possible. So, you may have done a lot of this stuff and you may be scoffing at this, but it's less so about like, we're not trying to wow you with, the templates and the handlers, the specific ones that we're working with here, but more so just showcase like all the different things that you can do. And then there's one more addition to this here. So let's just say that we've reached this endpoint with this module, and perhaps we want to share it, or maybe we want to test it. We want to work with some of those methods or operations within database actions. If you're at that top level of the module here, you can actually go to OpenAPI. Well, let me go to what I was saying first. So you can get this documentation in the OpenAPI specification, and you can either download it or I could copy it. So you have everything here. And then if I download it, hopefully this will open in VS Code. And if I collapse everything, you can see you get all the information here. So I have all my components, and then all these global components. I've got the different paths. I've got my posts. My get is right here. It shows you what the base URI is here. It gives you some information on what the specification is, and then title and the version of your API. We just created this, so it's version 1.0.0.
Building APIs is worthless if you can't document them. So we try to give you everything you need to not only build them, but test them and play with them, and then secure them and document them.
And then, OpenAPI view is the second piece here. So this probably looks familiar if you've ever used like a Swagger editor. It'll look like this. But again, it has like all the different components here. But I'm not going to do a post. I'll just do this get right here. So I can just try it out, and then I can go back to A1, and
this is really nice. So this allows me to actually do posts in my browser technically.
Yeah. And I don't know, this is kind of neat because you can keep everything without having to switch, between different browsers or different applications. If you wanted to do something like this, and then you can kind of see like the response body, and you've got your headers down here, your status code at 200. Shows you this schema down here, so you can get a lot of valuable information. I guess absent, which this would never happen, but absent documentation, you could take this URI here, and you could kind of get a better understanding for what's on the other end of this API, or what's possible. We
have 4 minutes left, Chris. Could you just tease them what's in the last lab real quick?
Oh yeah. Oh man, I wish I could get through this quickly here, but so the last lab has to do with OAuth 2.0 authorization. So what we do, rather than just doing the real basic authentication with a username password, we are going to obtain we're going to create a role for the admin. We're going to create an associated privilege, and then we'll go into and we'll create an OAuth client. I don't know if I can do it really quickly, but
there's the video they can just hit play on too. So
oh yeah.
Okay, I don't know if anyone noticed, but in the labs, if you're following along at the beginning of each lab, there's actually a quick video that you can play that actually steps you through what we're doing in the lab. So I know you'll miss Chris and me because look how awesome we are. But a digital version of us is right there with you in the lab in those videos.
Yeah, I'm just checking to make sure that if there's anything in here that's like, that might be a little tricky, but I really don't think. But let me, so if you have your module now, what we're going to do is we're going to basically do what we said we should have done from the start, which was add security to this. And we're just creating a role and a privilege. And then we will go in and make this client here, and then we'll set this up. This is all a lot of administrative stuff. You know, you're going to assign the roles and privileges to that OAuth client. We will grab a bearer token, and then we're going to use that bearer token in another curl request. So you'll get to this step right here, and we'll say, okay, take that curl command and then put it into the OCI shell or your terminal, and it's not going to work. You're going to get like an unauthorized error. And the reason why is because we just protected that. So you need to go, oh, it's right there. You'll get that. So what we need to do is we need to go in and we need to add in the authorization bearer token, which is what you would have just copied up here. And then once you do that, you'll be able to get this output, this 8204. And then we do that again.
If you've never done OAuth 2 before, that's the tricky part, is just learning the OAuth 2 workflow.
And then once you have the syntax, you know, once you understand where it goes and how everything's working, it makes it was pretty eye-opening for me. And then, I'm sorry, you'll do the post to get that output 8204, and then you just do the get, which is that open get on A1, and you'll get your JSON array come through in the Oracle shell. I think that was mostly it. I don't even know if we have time to tease the Python application, but here it is. We've got a Flask application that we're going to provide you with. We'll walk you through how to download this, and then we're going to open up the application in your local host, and then we get to make some changes to it to personalize it. And then we're actually going to go through kind of what we just did just in this last with the OpenAPI. We actually go into a Swagger editor and we take a look at all the different
we built the APIs for you already. You just get to build an app around them. So
yeah, you will have to plug in. You will have to do some plug and play, but that's just for us to be able to walk through it. And then we'll actually talk about, like, you know, when we're actually in the Python file, like what these Oracle endpoints are doing for all these functions, or like why we're using them and how we're using them, and like how that's translated into like the HTML and the, you know, on the application interface side. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. And then
just tried to build like a practical hello world demo app of like, hey, here's some REST APIs, yeah, do something with it. So when people say, hey, what can I do with these? It's like, well, you could, you know, build an app that pulls down addresses and does a map, and it creates a little store that does posts and gets, you know.
And then this is actually hosted. We have all this stuff hosted, so you can use the Oracle REST APIs that we've provided for you. But I've also put database scripts in the zip file. So if you wanted to in your own tenancy, you can take those database scripts and you can make all the tables. You can all the modules, everything. Like you can kind of automate all that stuff. And then if you wanted to, you could take basically what we started with, and you can kind of put your own spin on it, or maybe see like what other things you can do with it. So it's a new type of workshop. It's a lot more, I don't know if it's a lot more interactive, but there's a lot more possibility with it. And I'm going to be doing some videos surrounding that, like walkthroughs of everything. So we'll be sure to share that. And you know, I'm going to send the link with Tara later this afternoon. So if you do see that, you can use that and start that before I send the videos out. So I'm just going to keep rambling until Tara tells me to stop.
We're done, man. It's lunchtime.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, just a couple quick last minute reminder. So yeah, we did record this, so I'm going to be posting that in the Slack channel, but it's also going to go to your email, whatever email you use to register with. We're going to send that and all of the relevant links in there. So be on the lookout for that. And I posted a couple of things in the Slack and chat just now. One, some upcoming events if you are interested in attending more going forward. Quick survey to let us know how we did today and what you'd like to see from us in the future. And then the lab guide that will last past this event if you want to keep going. So all of those are in there. And just wanted to say thank you, Chris and Jeff, and thank you all for joining us today. And we hope to see you again next time.